If you are not having one-on-one meetings with your team members, you are not actually leading your team. And this is coming from someone who generally dislikes meetings and likes to do everything offline if we can. If you don't believe me, sit tight. My guest today is going to explain not only why, but how you can start using one-on-ones to really get the power back in your business and start getting things going in the right direction, even if you are someone who hates meetings.
In the past, you wanted employees who just work, who should do what you want them to do. But you don't want robots any longer. You want people who think, who are thinking with you and are giving you some kind of feedback. They are not just yes, sirs. And that's the reason why I say that's why trust is so important. And trust is earned. Also, you as a leader need to earn the trust of your employees that they can, for example, openly discuss things with you. Otherwise, you don't get a good feedback. And because I'm very strongly believe that today you need cooperative leadership more than the authoritarian leadership, because you can't do it all on your own. Even if you're even if you're the boss in a small company, you shouldn't be the expert any longer. The expert should be your employees for certain areas. Then you need the trust. That's why I say it's so important.
Let's say I, like some of the people listening to this, I run a team of 20 people. We have never implemented one-on-ones. We use Slack, have a team meeting once a month, and that's it. Let's say I ask you, say, hey, come help me. Help me implement this culture. Where would I start that journey? What's the first thing I should do?
Well, to be very honest, with 20 people, you already have a problem, because you change your organization. You need some team leads. You can't do one-on-ones with 20 people. That's too much. In my opinion, there is or also experience, there is a magic number, I would say. That's the number 7. You can have 7 people direct reports. If you have more than 7, you should think about building a structure so that you have leaders below you, which you lead, and they lead the other employees. And they should then also use this kind of one-on-ones. So that's something I need to say before we go into the one-on-ones, I believe. That's very often the question, what should I do in the beginning? I don't feel very confident if I say, we will have a one-on-one. And you show it very nicely. You need to get started with them. And that's maybe a 20-minute meeting where you just say, well, you see, I want to do that regularly, because it's very important that it's consistent, that you do it, let's say, every 2 weeks or weekly. It doesn't need to have a 1-hour meeting. It can be a 20-minute meeting. And it has nothing to do with a status report or how can I say, operational questions. It's more about building trust. It's more about asking questions. For example, dear employee, what is your biggest hurdle, your biggest challenge right now? How can I help you? Or you can start with questions like, you see, we have this kind of problem right now in the organization, and I try to solve it in that way. What's your take on it? Do you think that was a good idea? So the most important part in the one-on-ones is that it's a discussion or a talk, but the talk shouldn't be a boss talk. It's an employee talk. So the employee should talk much more than the boss. It's the time for the employee. And most employees, they understand that most managers, bosses, owners, they have one thing in common, and that is they don't have a lot of time. So just by giving this time to them, That's your 20 minutes where we talk about your challenges, your problems, what you need from me, how I can help you. That's how we build the trust between these two persons.
Is there any prep that you suggest?
I wouldn't necessarily have a prep for that. So it's more that you really have this one-on-one conversation with them. This you could put something together that you say, because I'm feeling better, we will have, if it's 30 minutes, the first 10 minutes is the time for the employee, the other 10 minutes is where I as a boss give some information, and then we wrap everything up, something like that. That's for people who really want to be very structured. You can do that, but in the end, that's not important. That's just a tool which helps you in the beginning to do that. Later on, it should be like a conversation, like what would you would have with your friend or something, some conversation like that. By the way, very important is also a private conversation, for example, can also be done by make a walk outside. I had one managing director who told me he had a nice lake before his office. And he said, when I walk around that lake, it takes me 20 minutes. So he just took one of his employees and let's just have a walk around that. And that's, I think, helps you to get out of your day-to-day work, out of the day-to-day operations, so you can really think more strategically together with your employee, more about, you can also ask them, what did you do on the weekend? And do a little bit of chit-chat like that. All of that builds this kind of trust. And then you can get a little bit more into what's your biggest challenge? What are your goals? Where can I help you right now? What do you need from me? What kind of feedback do you have for me as your boss? What can I do better? All these kind of things can be done in these one-on-ones. First of all, these kind of one-on-ones shouldn't be 1 hour. It's maybe 20 minutes. It can also be just 10 minutes, but it's important that it's done consistently, regularly. It's if you maybe in the beginning you have a 1 hour meeting, but later on you shouldn't. It should be smaller. So the consistency is much more important here. Second thing, a lot of leaders then say, we don't need that because we meet every day. My door is open. When I hear that already, I think that's the problem here. No, my door is not open, because how can my door be open if I talk to my one employee and the other one comes in? No, it's not. That's not working like that.
Right.
Because that's the most important. This 10 or 20 minutes one-on-one, I'm totally focused on the employee. I don't read my emails. I don't go on the phone. There is no interruption. That's the most important part, I think, here. And then one-on-ones fit in quite well. It will not work if you have all kind of disturbances, and if you are not really thinking about what is important and what is just operational things. And a lot of leaders have that kind of problem, that they say, I have such a lot of things on my plate. And I say, okay, show me what are your tasks all day long. And then very often you can see that's not a task for a manager or for the leader, for the owner. That's things you should delegate. If you delegate that, then you have more time. And the problem here is that a lot of these owners think, yes, I can do this leadership additionally to my normal task. No, that's a full job. The problem is if you're not doing it, no one else will do that. So you better delegate all the other tasks, the operational tasks, to your employees so that you have time for strategy and for leadership, because that's the most important part.
Let's
Sure.
say we're in that meeting and you ask me, oh, do you have any feedback or is there anything wrong? And the person just says, no, it's all fine. It's fine. Every week after week after week. It's fine. Everything's good. What do you do?
Yeah. What I like to do in this case, because if everything is okay, is a yes or no question. You don't get into it. You need to have some kind of icebreaker or something like that. One option is that you say, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you like me to give you? How good is my feedback to you? Where can I improve? And very, very often, people then wouldn't say, "Oh, you're the greatest boss, 10," but they would say something like 7 or 8, not 10. And then you ask, okay, thank you very much. If it's a 7, for example, what do I need to change to get to a 10? And then you get into, can you give me when I say, yeah, for example, you could be a little bit more precise on certain areas. I would say, well, thank you very much. That's great. Can you give me an example so I can learn that? So that's very often the point that people give you an answer, and it's very general. And then you get into and ask, hey, can you give me an example? Then you get into the nitty-gritty normally.
Ooh, so as you can probably tell, one-on-ones are both not as formal and scary and more important than you might realize. You don't need to have some kind of formal agenda. You don't need to have 60 minutes set aside. But taking just a little bit of time to just talk to the human that you are working with to build awesome things has huge dividends. And thank you so much for our guest today for breaking that all down. You can find more about him in the description below. If you're a member, you can find this full 1-hour interview ad-free inside the members area. And if you are now thinking, well, I really want to start doing one-on-ones. What should my agenda look like? How do I go about doing this? You can steal Bernd's tips inside his resource, which I'll link below. And you can watch this video here on the end screen. I go through every meeting I have in my business, what the agenda looks like, how often I have it. Just peel back the whole curtain so you can get some inspiration right here. Is it perfect? Probably not, but is it what I do? Yes. So check that out, and until next time, enjoy the process.